At 11:47 on a Tuesday night, Daniel searched something on Google that he was too embarrassed to tell anyone about. How do I start over at 30? He was 29. He had a job, an apartment, and several friends. Nothing was technically wrong with his life. And yet he felt like he'd somehow missed his own life. He looked at the screen for a few seconds. Then he closed the laptop and went to bed. However, the next morning nothing changed. He went to work, answered emails, grabbed coffee, made small talk with coworkers, came home, scrolled, slept, and did it all again for another year. Maybe you know someone like Daniel. Maybe you're Daniel. Here's the strange thing about wasting your life. It rarely looks like wasting your life. You don't wake up one morning and decide, today, I'm going to throw away the next 5 years. It happens quietly. One postponed decision. One I'll do it next year. One job you never really wanted but were too scared to leave. One dream you told yourself wasn't practical. One relationship you stayed in because starting over felt exhausting. 1,000 nights of telling yourself, I'll figure it out eventually. And eventually becomes 25, then 28, and then 31. And suddenly you're sitting there thinking, where the hell did the time go? The worst part isn't even your own life. It's watching everyone else's. Because your phone has turned other people's milestones into a scoreboard. Someone got promoted. Someone got engaged. Someone bought a house. Someone moved across the country. Someone launched a startup. Someone is traveling through Europe. And then there's you, sitting on your couch at 11 p.m. wondering what you've actually done this year. Here's the problem. You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. And your brain doesn't care that Instagram is curated. It still registers the comparison. They're moving. I'm not. They're becoming someone. I'm wasting time. Then introduce the deeper question. But what if the problem isn't that you're behind? What if you simply stopped moving toward anything that mattered to you? That's the pivot. Maybe you're not afraid that you'll fail. Maybe you're afraid you'll try and discover how much you actually could have done. Think about that. Because if you never try, you can always tell yourself, I could have done it. And somehow that feels safer than finding out. This is where self-sabotage becomes so strange. We say we want a different life. But a different life requires a different version of us. And becoming that person means giving up the identity we've gotten comfortable with. The person who always procrastinates. The person who never follows through. The person who says, I'm just unlucky. The person who says, I don't have the right connections. The person who keeps waiting for motivation. Because as painful as that identity is, it's familiar. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you've probably heard some version of this. You should have figured it out by now. But who decided that? Who decided that by 25 you need the career? By 28 the relationship? By 30 the house? By 35 the money? These aren't laws of nature. They're social scripts. And when you don't follow them, you start treating yourself like a failure. But look at your life differently. You're not late. You're alive. Which means you still have something incredibly valuable. The ability to change direction. Here's where most motivational videos get this wrong. They tell you to completely reinvent yourself. Wake up at 5 a.m. Start a business. Read 50 books. Work out every day. Become unstoppable. And for 3 days, you feel like a new person. Then life becomes normal again. You miss a workout. You sleep in. You don't finish the project. And suddenly you're back where you started. But rebuilding your life doesn't begin with becoming extraordinary. It begins with becoming consistent. One application, one workout, one page, one phone call, one uncomfortable conversation, 1 hour spent building something instead of scrolling. Small actions don't look like a new life until you repeat them long enough. Daniel eventually realized something. He had spent years waiting for the feeling that would tell him it was time to begin. Confidence, motivation, certainty, permission. But that feeling never came. And maybe it wasn't supposed to. Because confidence doesn't always come before action. Sometimes, action creates confidence. You don't need to know exactly where your life is going. You just need to know what the next honest step is. Apply, learn, build, leave, start, try, fail, adjust, and don't forget to try again. That's not falling behind. That's living. A year after that Google search, Daniel still hadn't figured everything out. He didn't become rich. He didn't suddenly discover his life's purpose. His life wasn't perfect, but something had changed. He had finally started moving. He took a class he'd been putting off, applied for a job he didn't think he'd get, started working out, reconnected with someone he'd lost touch with, and started building something on the side. None of those things looked impressive on Instagram. But for the first time in years, he felt like his life belonged to him again. And maybe that's what starting over actually means. Not becoming the person you imagined at 18. Not erasing the years you regret. Not pretending nothing happened. It's deciding that the years behind you don't get to control the years ahead of you. Maybe you wasted time. Maybe you made the wrong choices. Maybe you stayed too long. Maybe you gave up on yourself for a while. It's okay. Face it. Don't romanticize it. Don't run from it. But don't build a home there either. Because the time you lost is gone. But the time you still have is not. So if you're 25, 29, 34, 41, or 60, and some part of you keeps whispering, I should have done more by now. Maybe the better question isn't, how much time did I waste? Maybe it's, what am I going to do with what's left? Because your life doesn't need a perfect beginning. It needs a decision. One honest decision. One small step. And then another. Until one day, you look back at the person who thought their life was over and realize they were simply standing at the beginning of a chapter they hadn't written yet. It's not too late. Face your life.